Well, welcome everyone. Let's see if I can get my papers in the right spot here. Okay, we have Tuesday, June 25th, 2024, 10 a.m. I'll call this meeting to order. I've asked Jeff Dalton to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Woody has a few comments.
You guys, I don't know, I'm sure everybody here knows, but Tom Foster passed away last week. So Tom was the director of Bullion Plaza, but he's also heavily involved in the historical stuff for the state. And he was on several different boards and was a real good member for us to have here in Gila County, and super good guy to talk to and be around and work with. So I'd like to just take a moment of silence in Tom's behalf, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. You can be seated. Well, it looks like we have a short agenda, but I don't believe we do. Not very many items, but it's going to take a little while to get through this. So I'd like to say item 2A, we'll start off with that, but I'd also like to say this is Jeff Dalton's, probably his last presentation before the board, before he retires. And so he's worked for Gila County for, I don't know how long, many, many, many years, 17 years. You've worked for us longer than that, though. You worked prior to that. Did you work prior to that? Okay. So we wish you the best and a happy retirement, and you've served Gila County well. We appreciate that very much. So, yeah, you're welcome. Item 2A, information, discussion, action. To authorize and direct the Gila County Attorney to sign and submit the required participation forms, including a general release, so that Gila County may participate for itself in the city of Winkleman in the new opioid litigation settlement with Kroger Company.
I'm grateful to be able to make this presentation before you, Mr. Chairman and supervisors today. I'm asking you to approve Gila County's participation in the next opioid litigation settlement. What this is you have already approved 9 previous opioid litigation settlements against 9 major national companies. This is the 10th one against Kroger Company, which is the national grocery store pharmaceutical chain, part of the supply chain of the opioids, which have been, to say that it's been a devastating crisis would be an understatement. What this is you authorize the county attorney, and he can sign a general release and the participation forms that are necessary to start this moving. By about the middle of August, it will be determined whether the participation has been enough with the states and the subdivisions that the settlement will be finalized. And if it is, then their portion of the settlement will be around $1.2 billion, which will mean about another $68 million in settlement to the state of Arizona, which will bring the state's total up over $1 billion in settlement. These are important because it provide additional funding for substance abuse disorder prevention and treatment to elevate those functions. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions.
Supervisor Klein.
I don't believe I do either, Jeff. Thanks for putting all that together.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to authorize and direct the Gila County Attorney to sign and submit the required participation forms, including the general release, so that Gila County may participate for itself and the town of Winkleman in the new opioid litigation settlement with Kruger Company.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And best of luck to you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2B, information and discussion regarding the possibility of waiving the $72,000 administrative cost for the sewer connection fee from the Gila County Community Development Department for the Tri-City Regional Sanitary District during the district sewer line installation construction project. Michael O'Driscoll.
Morning, Chairman and members of the board. So today's just a brief discussion about the possibility of waiving some fees for the Tri-City Sanitary District. And I'll go into a little bit of detail. When they start construction, Tri-City Sanitary District, of their sewer line installation, each installation requires an inspection from the Community Development Department. And we charge a $75 fee to go ahead and do that inspection and issue a permit. We have about 1,800 homes in this area, and it's likely that we're not going to have the resources needed to go do all of these inspections, because each inspection requires several trips out to the property, not just one trip. And so we've been in discussions with Tri-City on what we can do to make it easier for them as well as easier for the county. And one of the strategies is we operate under the International Building Code through community development. And what the International Building Code allows us to do is to have our chief building officer, in this case Randy, designate a special inspector. Pardon me. What that means is basically, apologize, I'm all choked up. So, oh yes, sir. Thank you, Supervisor. So what that means is we work with Tri-City and the contractors who are doing the installation, and we receive, and Randy reviews the expertise and resume of somebody who's qualified to do those inspections. And so we designate that person to do the inspections and to submit the paperwork to community development. And if you do that, that takes away a lot of the visits that we have to do. It's a qualified inspector, so it makes it easier on the county, makes it easier on Tri-City. And then that also reduces the cost to the county. Because now what we're talking about, instead of $75, it drops it down to about $40 for administrative costs, for gathering the paperwork and entering it into our computer system. So the discussion is coming in front of the board and seeing the potential of that $40 administrative cost, working with Tri-City to waive that fee for a total of approximately $72,000 over about 7 to 10 year period. It's not $72,000 a year, it's not $72,000 one given time. This project is supposed to go 7 to 10 years for each to complete all 3 phases. So the $72,000 would be over a period of 7 to 10 years. So probably an average about $6,000 to $7,000 a year is what we're thinking in administrative costs. And so that's what I'm here to sort of answer any questions you have and sort of hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, and this is a work session portion of our meeting, so Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, just one question is that the hookups will be taken care of by the Colonia, is that correct? And so I'm wondering if that would not include the inspection fees as well as the hookups. I mean, it's just something that we could look into,
Well,
perhaps.
Oh, thank you,
I mean,
Supervisor.
and I have no problem in waiving, but I mean, that's just something I wanted to bring up to see if it might be possible. Mr. Chair, I think there might be someone that might want to speak to that as well. But if you want to come on up.
Yeah, this is
I'm sorry,
Mike
Mr.
Krebs
Chair,
with
you can
Tri-City
tell us that.
Sanitary District.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet.
Thank you, Board Supervisors and Chairman. Mike Krebs, I'm the engineer with Tri-City, and I certainly hope 7 to 10 years is not correct, because I'm getting too old for that. Definitely the Colonia can take care of some of those costs. What we were just trying to do is to work a balance. We the district recognizes that the county still has costs that they will be incurring. And so if we can, get somewhere and make a happy median, I think the district and can justify that with the people. We're just looking at, we all know where costs are going. And so every dollar that we can, work to help cut costs for the project is obviously beneficial to everyone.
Okay, yeah, no, that was just a question that I had, and it's great to hear that they're that close. It's encouraging, and that's all the questions that I had.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I'm very supportive of the project, and I'm glad to hear they're that close, and if there's anything I can do to help, I'm willing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And just to follow up on that question, we did look into that as far as who pays the fees, and our ordinance sort of requires that we receive a fee. So, and they're a government, a taxing body, and we're able to go ahead and waive the fee if necessary.
Thank you, Mike.
Supervisor Klein.
So Michael, just to get this right, and Mike, so we waive this fee, and there's not gonna be any cost to the homeowners, and as far as that goes,
The connection, the Colonia, the area is a Colonia area. And so because of that, there is funding that is through the Colonia grants. I think it's about $7 million that is specifically dedicated to hook up from the lateral to the home and then abandon in place the tanks that are currently there.
okay,
So,
all right, well, thank you.
Okay, so I need help understanding this. So normally we would garner 135,000 for this project because that's based on $75.
Correct.
And by doing this alternative inspection process, it's reduced to $72,000. Okay.
Correct.
Right? And now you're asking us to waive charging the 72,000.
Chairman, I'm not asking an action at
Yeah,
this particular.
well,
I'm just
right,
sort of-
but you're proposing that, and so what cost is it to the county to go through this process if we're not gonna charge a fee?
Well, per permit, it's, we figured it out to be the $40 per permit. There's 1,800 homes, so eventually when all 1,800 get hooked up, that's the $72,000 there. So over a period of time of this construction, it's administrative costs about $40 per permit.
And so we would absorb that,
Correct, absolutely.
okay? And so what is, other than saving some money for the Tri-City Sanitary, what would be my motivation to do that?
Just to assist them in getting the project done, to decide to reduce some of the costs that have been incurred, that have been increasing each year with labor, with materials.
Have
those
we
kinds of
done that to others, or are we willing to do that to others, or is this setting some kind of a favoritism scenario?
Well, running this by the county attorney's office, it's a government agency, so we're
Yeah.
able to waive fees for government agencies. We can't do it for private industry, those kinds of things, because of the gift clause.
Right. I'm just trying to protect the county's interests, so I understand the other interests. I mean, that's obvious. I just want to make sure that if we're going to take a hit, that it's justifiable,
I understand, sir.
okay? We need to talk about it some more?
I would just, Mr. Chair, if I may, I would just say for the infrastructure purposes and for the water table purposes, to me, that's money well spent. And rather than taking a hit, I think it helps the community very much in infrastructure as well as protecting our water tables.
I would think too, Michael, by doing this, we're gonna just transfer the majority of that workload over to Tri-City Sanitation. I mean, and we're gonna save the homeowners some money in the long run from this.
Correct, that's the thought process when we appoint a special inspector, which, by the way, we do on a regular basis, because there's certain construction that we don't have the expertise to provide those inspections for, the issue to CO,
Right.
the occupancy permit. So, absolutely, that's gonna save the county, on resources as well. And then all we would do is incur the administrative costs, which is accepting the permits from Tri-City and the inspector, and then uploading those to our system.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I can
Chairman?
see, given the balance of all that, I can see where this could be advantageous to do this in the long run.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I follow up on Supervisor Humphrey's question? And it was probably stated, but I missed it, but, with a colonial grant, this several million that's set aside, would that cover this fee, or was it stated that it cannot be included?
I think that the Colonia grant could apply to anything that's related to getting it hooked up. And so if that permit is necessary and part of it, it could be utilized, I would say, towards that, yes.
So it's something that's not been determined yet that we should explore.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have a clear path, Michael? You feel like?
Sure.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Thank you. Item 2C, information discussion regarding Gila County Animal Control and Control Programs, operations, and facility updates. And we have John and Manuel Riddle.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Manuel was gonna present today, but there's a portion where he's going to talk about our Facebook program.
Okay.
So I'm gonna kind of lead into that right now a little bit. And so, I'll go ahead and start. So I've been running animal control for the last 24 years. I've been an animal control officer for 31 years. In that time, I have seen a lot of big changes in animal control. In 2021, I was voted Animal Control Officer of the Year under the Arizona Animal Control Association. I do sit on that board as a District 6 representative, and I'm still on that board today. This last year, I was appointed by Senator Kavanaugh to a committee with 7 other animal control agencies, and we went over several laws and tried to make them better for animal control and try to get funding and different help for rural animal control agencies. And so I sat on that committee, and very proud of that. Next slide. Revamping the animal shelter. As you all know, September 1st, 2020, we broke ground on our new animal care facility. To get to that point, we put together a team of a lot of us. I know Michael Driscoll was part of the team, Homero was part of the team, Paula, a lot of my staff members were part of that team to get to that point. And I know when Homero came along, he always was saying that he wanted an animal shelter that had functionality. On August of 2021, we moved into the animal shelter, and 3 years later, the animal shelter is running as designed. We have no problems. It runs great. We run at capacity, which we have probably between 40, sometimes we have 50 dogs there, and have no problems. We can clean, and everything's great. We do have agencies now that come to our facility, and they look at our shelter because they want to try to build their new shelter, and they ask us, how did you guys stay under the $2.8 million? And I can tell, I've told one of the finance ladies, it was the team that was put together. We followed everything that we had put out to get to that point, and that's how we stayed under the $2.8 million. And I know that made everybody in this room pretty much happy. So we're really proud of that. And I know I talked about myself, but if it wasn't for my staff, animal control wouldn't be where we are right now. And so I'm going to kind of highlight my officers right now and my staff members, because it takes a team, And the team that we have assembled right now is, you know, over the top. So this is Officer Manuel Riddle. He's been with us for a little over 3 years now. Officer Riddle himself was just voted Animal Control Officer of the Year in 2023 by the same Arizona Animal Control Association. Manuel does fill in as our field training officer. He helps with new officers coming on, training, and getting them ready for the field so they can do their own thing in the field by themselves. And Manuel also sits on the board of Azaka. He is their webmaster, so he takes care of all the web stuff for Azaka. So we're really proud to have Manuel aboard. Next one is Tina Cummings. Tina is the backbone of the facility. Tina here is pictured with our mascot, Gila. If you haven't been to the animal shelter, Gila is on the right-hand side. And the other dog is Lucky. Tina really works hard with animals so we can get them transferred out to other agencies. And Lucky was one of the special ones that she really worked with hard. Lucky was a very scared puppy when it came in. You couldn't touch it, you couldn't really handle it. She took the dog and she was able to get it friendly, and that picture was taken in our HR office by Erica. And so that dog was able to go to Arizona Animal Welfare League and got adopted out. So we're very proud of what Tina does. Tina does work with 2 of our Arizona Department of Correction inmates. Together they work every day. They start about 6:30 in the morning. They feed, water, play with the animals, walk the animals. All the animals get playtime. By the time 12 o'clock hits, everything's been walked, playtime, and you can go out there and the dogs are just content. They're not really barking or anything, and you can tell that they are resting. And so it's something that Tina has done very well for us, and I'm very happy to have her on board. Now, these 3 officers here are our newest officers. They bring over 60 years of law enforcement to animal control. First one is the officer in the middle. That's Officer Ben Anderson. He is a retired Maricopa County Sheriff's Officer. There he spent 20 years with them. Ben was part of the Lake Patrol. He was part of the rope team. He was a sergeant and part of the dive team. So he has a big background and in that area. So we are happy to have Ben on our staff, and he is our pacing officer. So he takes care of the northern part of Gila County. Next one is the one on the bottom with the big smile. You probably know him. He's worked 18 years with Gila County Sheriff's Office. He worked in detention. There he started off as a detention officer, worked his way up through the ranks all the way up to major, and he served a great time there, decided to retire, and we were lucky enough to get him, and we're very happy to have him on board. The next officer is the one on the top, pictured with Gila, is Jeremiah Johnson. Jeremiah Johnson spent 22 years at the Arizona Department of Corrections. He retired there and seen the job opening for animal control. I was like, might as well go back to work. So he's really happy to be with us. He's a great officer, and everybody is working well, and we do have a great team. On June 13th, just a couple of weeks ago, years back when I first started animal control, we were sworn in by the sheriff, and for some reason we got away from that for several years. I'm not sure why, but I wanted to bring that back. So I talked to Josh Beck, Paula, asked them, hey, can we revamp our uniforms? Can we get badges back and stuff like that? And Josh was like, yeah, run with it. So we redesigned our whole uniforms and patches, and we got badges, and we were all sworn in at the Justice of the Peace. And so that was a big milestone that we hit. So we're back to being sworn officers a for animal control, and we're proud of that. So adoptions and licensing. This last year, we adopted out around 100 dogs, 23 cats, and we've sold over close to 2,000 licenses now, because I just checked it yesterday. And one thing that we're really pushing right now is microchipping. We're trying to get microchips in anything that we can. That way, if we pick up a dog in the field, we can scan it for a microchip, and we can get that dog back home within probably 10, 15 minutes. And that dog doesn't have to come to the shelter, which saves us money, and it saves the dog owner money too. So we're trying to push microchips. Low-cost spay and neuter. We did get a grant last year of $10,000. It came from the Arizona Pet Plate Grant Committee. That $10,000, we've done 35 dogs, 12 cats, and we wish we could spread the money out a little bit more, but with only one vet in town, it's really hard. We're trying to get more vets to come to Gila County, or in at least this part. And I have talked to a vet. She runs the Arizona Vet Direct mobile unit, and she is coming to Globe. She will be here on Thursday, and she already has about a little over 20 surgeries set up in her mobile unit, and she'll be working right on our complex there at the facility. So we're excited. She said that she's going to do a test run, and if it works well, she'll start coming on a monthly basis to Globe to help with the spay and neuter and the lack of vets here in the area. So we're happy to have her come to Globe. And I'm going to go ahead and let Manuel talk about the social media. He runs that for us, and so I'm going to go ahead and let him talk about that.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. I'm delighted to stand here before you today to share the incredible impact of our Facebook page. Since its inception, our Facebook page has been a vital tool in promoting our mission and connecting with wonderful residents of the Gila County. I want to point out some remarkable achievements that we have accomplished through our Facebook page. The adoptions, we've successfully adopted about 25 plus animals to loving homes. Each adoption represents a new beginning of an animal in need and a joyous addition to every family. The reuniting of animals back to their home. As John stated, we try to not bring animals into our facility by means of identification, license, or microchip. If we can scan a microchip and get them back home within 5 to 10 minutes, again, it saves our time, and it also saves the less hassle of the family worrying about where their animal is. Our growth and engagement as of September of 2023, our Facebook page has grown over 3,800 followers from all parts of Gila County, and this demonstrates the widespread support and interest of our cause. Our Facebook page has been viewed over 9,000 times, showcasing the extensive reach of our post and the high level of engagement from our followers. Gila County Animal Control has reached over 3,500 likes and comments, reflecting an active participation and interaction of our community members. The engagements of our post not only spreads awareness, but also fosters a sense of unity and shared purposes. These numbers are for more than just statistics. They represent life change, families made whole, and a community coming together to support a common cause. The power of social media has allowed us to extend our reach far beyond what we could imagine, and the results have been truly heartwarming and the numbers show. So, thank you.
Great presentation. I appreciate that. You guys, you're award-winning employees, an award-winning department, and a brand-new facility. It's all good. Supervisor Humphrey.
No, I just think it's a great program, and I'm very proud of you, John, for where you've taken this program.
Thank you.
Because like I say, I very much consider it an honor that you asked me to be at the pinning of the badges. That was special to me, because
Thank you.
like I say, 30 years ago it was rabies control and an old falling down building that was in forever. So I'm proud of the work that you've done, and seeing officers that have retired that come and want to be part of your team, because people and their animals are extremely touchy. Some people think more of their animals than they do their children, but Anyway, so that puts you in a tough place all the time. And so I'm just very proud of what you have built with that in the years that you've been here. So
Thank you.
thank
Appreciate
you
that.
very, very much.
I appreciate that.
Supervisor Clun?
John, thanks. Manuel, thanks. Well, and it's good to see you got an awesome team in place. So you're staffed up, you're full,
Fully
right?
staffed, knock on wood, yeah.
Fully staffed in a nice
Yes.
facility.
Yes, sir.
Life's good.
It is. Yes, sir.
Question for you. In Payson, are we hooked up with a vet up there in Payson to do?
No,
Ye-
nobody would come aboard. I've asked them, and none of there's like 8 vets up there, and nobody would want to come aboard. It's really hard.
Yeah, that makes it tough.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is very hard to do our job and not have vets. So a lot of times, if we have injured animals up there, we got to try to get them down here as soon as we can to our vet here, who will see us in an emergency situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that's really tough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's I don't know.
Another question for you, like in your animals that you adopt out, do you go ahead and chip them as part of the adoption?
Oh, yes.
And to go?
If we can put our hands on it, it's got a chip.
Okay.
If you
Good.
come in, watch out, because you'll get a chip too.
That might not go so good.
So you just gotta be aware, okay?
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks for all you guys do. Really
I got
appreciate it.
one more thing. Can you pull up that picture for me real quick? So this was just last minute on this picture right here. So in the middle is Sergeant Justin Guadiana. He's with the Arizona Department of Corrections. He's their canine handler there. And we work with them on trying to, if we have dogs that we think that can go into their drug program and cell phones or search and rescues, we'll do that. So I called him, and he came to look at another dog. And he's like, well, hey, the other dog didn't really work out. He goes, but we had this hound dog. This hound dog was found on the Young Highway. And we put it up, and nobody came for it. And so he looked at the dog, and he's like, can I take it down to our complex in Florence? And I'm like, yeah, so he called the guy in Florence, and he's like, yeah, bring him, we'll put him through some tests. And I'm happy to report that he is now a canine officer dog. He
Good.
works for the Arizona Department of Corrections, and he does searches. He did a couple of tests, and the first thing he did was put his nose down and went and found the individual that had went and hid in like a matter of seconds. So they are really happy to have him. So that's we're happy that we can do stuff like that.
How many animals have you had go that route?
We've had probably at least 3 go that route to them.
Cool.
Yeah, and they become working animals for them,
Mhm.
so it helps out.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate
Of course,
it.
thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Is that your dog, Woody?
No,
No? Some poor guy's missing his dog. He's out.
I want it back after this present.
He's out chasing lions somewhere. Okay, thank you, guys. Appreciate that. So let's get to the center cut of this meeting here. We got item 2D, information discussion regarding the prioritization of future Gila County capital improvement projects. Okay, this is going to be a big presentation. So thank you, Joseph. Go
Thank you,
ahead.
Chairman. Good morning, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Today, projects are presented in an order of priority recommendation. All projects are critical infrastructure and require attention. However, we need to prioritize so that we can efficiently and effectively budget and focus resources on top priority projects. Feedback that we've received from the board in the past was to add additional context to these projects so that we can also consider those for the prioritization. As we evaluate each project on its own merits, we considered safety, risk management, operational impact, cost, and feasibility, allowing us to recommend a prioritized list to the Board of Supervisors. Ensuring Gila County's facility safety, security, and compliance is of the utmost importance for our team. The projects to upgrade electrical systems, replace roof, add and support security, and upgrade HVAC systems are critical in safeguarding the well-being of employees, visitors, valuable assets. These initiatives reflect our commitment to creating a safe, secure, and sustainable environment for all stakeholders. Let's explore the details for each essential project. As we move forward with the projects, you are welcome to ask any questions or share feedback The final slide contains a summary of the prioritized projects, and we are open to adjusting priorities based on recommendations from the Board of Supervisors.
Thanks, Joseph. I'm sure that if we want to jump in, we'll just go ahead and do that as we go along.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right, thanks.
With that, we're going to go through these slides. They're going to be an outline of the project. We've covered these projects extensively over the past year or two, outlining what those projects are. Again, that's in the slides. So the focus is going to kind of wrap around some of the justification of why we're prioritizing it. So the first one, the critical security camera infrastructure has encountered a significant system failure, with nearly 80% of the current infrastructure failing. This has disrupted critical operations related to safety, risk management, unauthorized access, asset management, and election integrity, court security. This project is crucial due to its extensive impact on all operations, employees, and constituents across the county. In comparison to other priority projects such as the electrical systems and infrastructure, the security system is the only critical infrastructure that has failed. With no immediate fix or solution impacting the county, although the electrical system is critical, a failure in the electrical system is likely to be isolated to a specific operation in comparison to the broad county impact of security cameras. Currently, the electrical system is online while the camera systems are essentially down. Given the extensive impact of the security camera infrastructure failure on safety, risk management, unauthorized access, asset management, election integrity, and port security, it is our recommendation that the security camera project take precedence over electrical systems. The security project is a straightforward and quick solution with a high yield in terms of the enhanced safety and security, whereas the electrical infrastructure requires a significant amount of time and effort for assessment and correction. Prioritizing the security project is vital to ensure the safety and security of all stakeholders, vital operations across the county. Now, this one I'd like to add just a little bit more context to it. These other electrical infrastructure projects are extremely important to all operations. This is an opportunity for us to have the largest impact to the county with the cost. And it's in terms of electrical and some of the other critical infrastructure faster. Now, I don't want to downplay how much work and time has gone into this project or what lays in the scope of it. It is a daunting project. But in terms of the others, it falls to the side as far as the amount of labor and time and energy that is going to go into it, and cost.
Excuse me. We may want to ask a few questions about this particular item, and
Yes,
I'd like
please.
to make a clarification because it seems like deep in my memory this was ARPA money on the security cameras. I asked Mr. Menlove. He thought he remembered it as ARPA money. I'm not sure if we have committed ARPA money for the security cameras. I think that's important that we find out whether we've already committed ARPA money for this project.
Right?
So the definition of committed has changed throughout the ARPA process. So because the Board of Supervisors has not signed a contract yet, technically these funds are not committed. We have the capacity for you to commit them. But right, if you look in New World right now, because you haven't signed the contract, there's not an encumbrance for this project yet.
Okay, so Mayor, and to clarify, I understand but did we set aside money in initial discussions about ARPA spending? Did we say that we would like to include this in the ARPA spending, even though we haven't committed it yet?
It was on a good ideas list. It was not in the initial allocations that you sat and made when you allocated between digitization and other projects like that. Security cameras were not spelled out in that.
Okay, so do we have $830,000 left of ARPA money?
You have capacity to do that, yes.
I see. Okay.
So with that being said, Marion, how much more ARPA money do we have sitting out there?
It's just about $830,000
So that'll
right now.
cover this project.
Yes.
Okay. So this is something that wasn't brought up before. is the ARPA aspect of this project. Because I was told that this was looked at as gonna be budgeted under ARPA money.
It can be, but it hasn't come before the board where you have made a
Exactly.
specific designation of the funding for this.
Right. So what I'm looking at here, as far as this security camera initiative, this would take care of our ARPA obligations as far as spending ARPA money.
Yes,
It would be off our plate.
yes.
So the only question I would have on the project, not for you, Mayor, but more for Joseph, is, you know, it lists out a bunch of the places where we're gonna put these cameras. One of the places I find surprising isn't on here is the fairgrounds. Is it gonna be covered with these cameras?
Chairman Supervisor
Mayor.
Klein, that's a great question. On this initial phase, it will not be included. The fairgrounds, Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat, and a few other satellite locations to include maintenance. Those are in a later phase. In order for us to budget for this project, it is going to be phased in. So this is the initial investment. Over the next 2 to 4 years, we're going to be investing operational funds that are going to upgrade those locations based off of the priority and the risk.
So I guess just for conversation purposes, and that's what today's for, with the work that's proposed for the fairgrounds, and we're already getting a lot of people to use it during our fairs, whatever functions are going on. A lot of these cameras, that's where they shine the best, is in case there's somebody that stubs their toe on that little rock in the parking lot or something like that. And I just would ask you guys and me as well, I think Star Valley Storage Building, instead of that, I'd rather have it at the fairgrounds, you know, something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Sure do, Supervisor Klein. Just to clarify, that storage facility is for elections, and that's why that one's segregated out,
Okay.
kind of stands out as a sore
Good to
thumb.
know.
But we appreciate the feedback, and we
Yeah.
can take a look at it.
The other thing, now that we know that this is ARPA money, which I did not know when we had this discussion before, I wouldn't have had a bit of problem going on with it under that circumstance. But that information didn't come up. So as far as I'm concerned, that's fine, you know.
Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no comment on that.
So it was part of my memory too, and that's why I was a bit confused. I'm glad we're able to clarify. So in my mind, even though I may not be saying it technically correct, if we have really planned on and set aside money, ARPA money, for these cameras, this is one of the oldest projects we've actually been discussing. So I have no, I mean, we need to spend the ARPA money. This is number one on your list. Security is obviously very important. And I think what Supervisor Klein mentioned about having additional cameras, it suddenly becomes a little more affordable to expand the footprint of the security cameras. So that's kind of my mindset on that.
I would just really like you guys to try and somehow include the fairgrounds on this go around. I don't know where you're at or whatever, or if we can scratch another building and put the fairgrounds in there. We just have a lot of people going through the fairgrounds. And it's not that we need to watch over everybody, but things do come up, and that's a real good tool to have to sort things out later.
Absolutely. Yes, sir, Supervisor Klein would be happy to take a look.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Why don't you just continue then?
All right, thank you. Next project is the Fairgrounds Electrical Phase 1. Again, this one is essentially tied with our first recommendation. The difference is the ability to execute the contract rapidly and a few other things of a wide spectrum impact. So this is isolated to the fairgrounds itself, but it's a very important one. Currently, there are several OSHA and National Electrical Code violations that we've been contending with out at the fairgrounds, presenting a serious risk to injury or even fatality. At the moment, we have taken strides to temporarily safety and lock out equipment and components as necessary. This project is a high priority to our first recommendation, but still requires additional work related to the full scope planning, engineering, and design. The project is in its feasibility stage and is equally important as the first project as mentioned in our pipeline. With the feasibility stage. We've done a great deal of planning, and we are on the edge of bringing that to the Board of Supervisors in the next 30 to 60 days. With that estimated cost in mind. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Sure, thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I just say, like I said, the fairgrounds are a pet peeve of mine. And so, you know, it just depends on how things work out. But the amount of money that we spend in rental and the fair spends in rental for just putting on the fair and some of the functions there with renting generators, renting lights, renting everything we need to run stuff because we don't have the electrical capacity, I think is really important. And like you say, with violations and stuff, yeah, cameras are important for people stubbing their toes, but electrical problems when you have people there are also bad if we have, you know, I mean, because if we do have a lot of violations and we're going ahead and operating anyway with safety violations, that's not a good way to go. And so that's my 2 cents worth. So, yeah, because like I say, I would like to have more going on at the fairgrounds and it be a place for recreation as it was in the past. And so, anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Talk to me about violations. What are we getting at the fairgrounds as far as violations? I mean,
So-
I don't hear this. And I gotta clarify something. I look at the fairgrounds, the vet center, a lot of things, that's a county facility, county project. But I don't hear anything when it comes to violations. I'm not sure what we're getting. Are we getting violations?
So there has not been any formal inspection or visitation from OSHA. However, with the team being able to identify what is the requirements of OSHA and also having some electrical assessments and evaluations completed on it, those have been identified as such. And sometimes, as a basic example, it can be as simple as not having a ground where a ground is required. So
Sure.
that list goes on. A lot of them are small that still lie out there. However, the ones we safetied or anything that was risk to life or limb, immediately locking out and safety.
There's no doubt we have to improve the facilities at the fairgrounds to continue on. And it is a cost and it is a pain for you guys to bring in the generators and things like that. But I look at it a little bit differently, and I've been looking at this differently. And it's not that we're not gonna spend money at the fairgrounds, because I'm sure we are. But we need to spend money in this building we're sitting in. We can bring generators, we can do that. Yeah, it costs us, I get it. And we need to fix that, I agree with that. This building goes down, we can't bring in generators to fix this building. Am I right?
Depending on the issue, yes, sir, there's a probability for that.
Because what you've been telling me and what I've come to know is that a lot of our boxes, whatever that means, in this building are outdated, they're old, they have to be replaced. There's an issue there.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And that would go against OSHA stuff and all that as well, correct?
There is, and that's one of what we'll kind of outline a little later too. There are some OSHA concerns with it and electrical code violations. They stand a little bit indifferent just because that one is high exposure, this one's limited exposure. Also, this has been outdated, so any code that's been progressed over the past 40 years, it just essentially fell out of that versus the other one, unfortunately, was a lack of maintenance was one of the big parts of it, the degradation of the system.
So when I look at the priority on this, and you've got them good, and I appreciate that on this page right here, it's all listed out there. And we had talked about the other projects before in our work session, but I agreed with the security cameras because that is already funded out of ARPA money. Okay? That was the case at the very first meeting you presented with us. It was looked at it for spending ARPA money and getting that done. I agree with that, that's fine. I'd agreed with it then had I known. But the courthouse to me is the next priority. That I feel like is something that I agree with Mr. Humphrey, and then we need to do some things on the fairgrounds, and we need to do some things on other buildings, but we can't have this building go down. We can't. And if, what you're telling me, the severity of this electrical system in this building, it does have a good probability of eventually it's gonna fail. Whether that's tomorrow or 10 years from now, who knows, but it is gonna fail. And so when I look at that, that creates a problem on our county as a whole if this building goes down. And so that's where I have sat all along saying, you know, the rest of this, we can work with it. I don't have anything one way or another. But this building needs some attention.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Joseph, so these are estimates. So, right, and
Yes.
they're your best guess. So would you say that they are conservative estimates or estimates that are padded so that we're not surprised later?
Yes, sir.
Just in your own mind, do you think, I mean, $650,000 for this first phase, and I don't know what all that involves. Is that a real number? Is that a close number? Is that a high number?
No, that's a great question to understand the context of how we obtain some of these numbers. We're always reluctant to give any kind of number unless it has been officially quoted. However, in order for us to plan and look forward, we do have to put some kind of stake in the ground so that we can budget and plan appropriately. With that being said, it is a rough order of magnitude and cost. It is a rough estimate.
Okay.
With it being a rough estimate, we always try and go to the high end of that estimate so that we can anticipate anything that might come out of the project, but also to budget appropriately.
Well, and that's the way it should, that's very helpful, actually. And it'd be better to have the cost at $450, not $950.
Yes,
So
sir.
I'm going to ask then a general question. When we are considering the priorities and the spending, because we've got some big numbers here, what kind of money do we have available for this? What would be our limits?
So, in terms of prioritizing spending, you have $6.1 million in LATCF funds that are excludable from your expenditure limitation, so would not create any other challenges as far as utilizing those funds. If you, for example, were to look at this list of priorities, the project list that Mr. Klein referred to that's on slide 15, assuming you used ARPA money for Project Overwatch, and assuming that congressionally directed spending was available for the fairgrounds electrical phase 2, you could get all the way down to your courthouse roof replacement project before you ran out of LATCF funds, which would only leave you 3 projects down at the bottom of the list. If you just went in order here, and the congressionally directed spending that was applied for Fairgrounds Electrical Phase 2 was available. So you have capacity built into the budget, of course, but you have actual funding available for the majority of these projects that would not cause you challenges when it comes to the State Economic Estimates Commission saying, oh, you can't spend that money.
Okay. And then when do we receive more funding, more money?
You receive more money every day.
But I mean, no,
but-
what I mean is this 6.1 million, do we get any more later?
No, that's
No,
all on
it's
that.
a one-time.
So
And we're not gonna
that's
get
the
any more
last
ARPA
one-time.
money. That's
Correct.
all gone, okay.
Right.
Very good. And so then, as far as options go, because I know you got 12 things on here, Joseph, but I'm almost certain you've got a list somewhere that's got 100 things on it.
Yes,
Okay, right? And so we have to start thinking, if it's gonna take us 20 years to do all these projects, what's the roof gonna look like on one of these buildings 20 years from now when it needs to be addressed today? And so what are our options as a county government to generate more money? And I'm not suggesting anything, I'm just saying, what are our options in order to try and take care of some of these projects sooner rather than later?
So if you were to, this list that you have in front of you today has $11,500,000, total estimated costs on it.
Right.
And of that, 1.87 is for the Central Heights roof replacement and HVAC. If you went with HVAC only, that would be 650,000. So there's the 1.2 million dollars of different capacity there. Of the 11.5 though, right, 1.6 is potential congressionally directed spending, and 830,000 would be ARPA. And then you'd have 6.1 of LATCF, which leaves you a shortfall of between 1.4 million and 3.8 million, depending on how that Central Heights roof shakes out. You also receive annually the federal PILT money, which is not, doesn't count against your expenditure limitation, but that is generally not allocated for projects like this. That's generally allocated for ongoing operations within the county. Other options include, if you wouldn't want to do it for something this aggregate small. You could get another pledged revenue bond similar to what we did in 2019 and 2020, but that is an enormous undertaking, and you would want that to be something where the entire one project was at least $10 million to make it worth doing.
Okay, so a bond would be an option,
A
but it's
bond
an
is option,
undertaking.
yes. And pledged revenue would be a kind of bond you could get without having to go to the voters, right? Without it costing your taxpayers more. You could do a pledged revenue bond. We still have capacity to do that.
What does a bond like that cost us? In other words, we're paying it back, but
Correct.
what would the interest rate be on that?
Current interest rate, prime, last I looked, was about 8.25%, and municipal is about half of that right now.
Okay,
So it would just depend on what the market was doing when we got it there, and if we started today, it would probably take us 6 to 8 months to get that done.
okay.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
may
sir. Mhm.
ask Mr. Menlove a question. Is there not infrastructure funds out there as far as grant forms that we reach for?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, absolutely. Just had a conversation this morning of targeting different grant revenue sources. So we continue to work in that, and we'll pursue every avenue that we can to get grants, because that's absolutely our number one priority of enhancing our revenue, or the grant revenue. So thank you for bringing that up, that is a critical thing that we continue to do. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, James, I know we have people on YouTube watching that don't understand the LATCF part of this conversation. Would you explain that so everybody knows what that is and how it came to be?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, those are monies that were appropriated by U.S. Congress as part of the COVID relief funds. It's local area, tribal, and consistency, local government
Local area and tribal consistency funds.
to stabilize the economies after COVID. So there was an original ARPA money that was $10.5 million that the county received, which we have identified that there's $630,000 remaining that's not committed yet. But the LATCF funding, $12 million that we received, is distributed based on payment in lieu of taxes types, which means there's not a lot of ties to it and not a lot of restrictions. Payment in lieu of taxes is what we get annually for all of the federal lands that are in Gila County. Our PILT money is typically about $4 million a year. This was $12 million one time, as has been noted. There's not any more of that money coming, and don't anticipate, heaven forbid, we have another pandemic, that there's not any of that, more of that money coming. But does that answer the question? 12 million one-time money related to COVID,
It does. It's also based on your public lands too.
public lands.
And the ones with the higher public lands had the most money, which was 12 million. I think that was the most you could get.
12 million was the maximum that anybody
Yeah.
got.
And our rural county was one of those.
Yes.
So, And that 12 million was 2 installments, 6 million 1 year, there's 6 million the last year.
Yes.
And so that should answer questions if there's any out there, but thank you for doing that.
And the only restriction on those funds was that they cannot be used for lobbying
Right.
activities, is the way that the final guidance read. So
Right.
you are not restricted in how you choose to use them.
And so we get the PILT money and we get secure rural schools money, which that usually goes to Roy Sandoval for his adult education program and some to our roads.
25,000 goes to roads every
Yeah,
year.
yeah. And that's really all the extra money that way that we get, I mean, unless it's a grant.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I make a comment? You asked about additional revenue sources.
Yeah.
And I know this is a place that we will not go
Right.
based on your direction, but Gila County has the capacity under our primary property tax to go from a $4.19 tax rate to over $6. It's like $6.50. I bring that up that you as a Board of Supervisors can vote to increase property taxes that much, almost 50%, well, more than 50% than you currently have coming in. That would be an additional $10 million of revenue to the county to do that. You have that capacity to take that action as we adopt the budget here in the next couple of weeks. I don't personally, and I believe I received direction from you, that we are not going to raise taxes. Tax burden on the citizens of Gila County are enough. But I do bring it up that you as a board, well, these tax rates and the ability that we have to raise taxes was established in about 1990, 1988, 1989. And it shows that even though we do have a $4.19 tax rate, that you as a board are very conservative, that you have reduced taxes, you have this capacity, but you choose to not burden taxpayers of homeowners of Gila County with that additional burden. So I think it's a credit to you as a Board of Supervisors to be conservative and to hold the line on the tax burden. But as you're looking for additional revenues, that is something that's out there. I know we're not going there, but I do want to mention that is probably the easiest thing. You as a board, one of the things that you have done to increase revenues is through Discover Gila County. An investment of a couple $100,000 a year has increased our revenues through excise tax and those types of things by millions of dollars over the course of Discover Gila County. That has made a significant impact on our ability to meet our obligations to address some of the facilities and those things that we have. So I appreciate that as a proactive thing. Those are people that are coming into Gila County that weren't coming in before. And so it has increased our revenues significantly and made it to be able to accomplish what we have done. As a board, you have invested heavily in facilities up to date on the 7 years and Supervisor Christensen coming along, that you have invested in the facilities, and you've turned what were a lot of worn out facilities that are breaking down and built new facilities. Those new facilities, the maintenance, the operations of those are significantly less, and all of those helps us to meet our obligations. We just have, you as a board, inherited a lot of old facilities, a lot of modular buildings that typically don't last very long, and they wear out quickly and require heavy investments. And we're trying to get over that hump and continue to do so. And with your direction, with your guidance, with your deep dives into understanding what is needed to do this, we are making a lot of progress, and we'll continue to do so with having these discussions with you. So a little bit of info. Hopefully I haven't overstepped and taken too much of your time, but wanted to share those thoughts.
No, I appreciate it. So yes, I think the reason I'm asking what our options are is I need to know the tools that we have in our toolbox. Even though we don't want to use some of those tools, or we may not use any of those tools, we just need to know what the options are. So we have a deteriorating facility infrastructure that needs maintenance, and in my estimations, I think that that's been overlooked for a long time, and so now we're facing higher costs because of deteriorating parking lots or something that could have been maintained. So along with these projects, my idea is that we also need to get in place spending annually for keeping these projects up, surfacing our parking lots and things like that. So Supervisor Klein, did you have comments on recent comments?
Well, I will say on behalf of James's statement, there's no way that I will ever vote for a tax increase. I just won't do it. And so, and I look back at what we inherited, like when me and Tim came on the board, and where we are today with all the improvements and things we've done. I know that the planets lined up and we got a lot of extra money, which was a big, huge help. But we put a lot of good projects on the ground, a lot of them. And so with any hope with that, maybe there'll be some more money come from somewhere one of these days. You don't know. That's why we go to DC. That's why we have Ms. Powers here helping us in DC as well. And we make those connections and we constantly push for funds. And I think that's a good route to go, not raising taxes. And so just to get back on our list, you know, like I said, the courthouse to me is on top, but I want to dip down in this, and I know we're headed there, but I don't think it should need to be at the bottom, because I want some discussions on this real quick, is our Central Heights roof replacement. And what I understand, Joseph, is due to the nature of the lease, we're kind of obligated for that roof. Am I taking that right?
Chairman, Supervisor Klein, we are responsible to repair that roof. With that being said, it's to our discretion. So if we wanted to replace it, that would be a determination on our side, not
theirs.
the leaseholder. That is correct.
Okay. And I wanted that out there just because that's kind of a different scenario with these projects. That's actually in an agreement that we have to do. You know, a lot of these is just whether or not we want to do it. So.
This LATCF is not, does not have an expiration date, does it? We don't have to spend it by a certain time.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, great, thank you. Keep going.
All right, great. So the next project, Supervisor Klein, you kind of stepped us right into it perfectly, transitioned us. And that's courthouse electrical infrastructure. Now, the project is extremely important due to the potential for service disruption, like has been mentioned, and the risk associated with the outdated infrastructure, meaning us being able to get the components to repair it. Although there is a high potential for the system failure because of the outdated infrastructure and discontinued components, leading to long-term outages, the system is currently operational. And that goes into our matrix of trying to make that decision. So with that is also what kind of impact we're looking at. Now, there is always a potential for a catastrophic failure, and that's an increased potential with the age of the equipment, the condition of the equipment, and a few other variables. I note this just because there is that risk, but that margin is increasing, and that's why we need to address it. So I don't want it to come off as trying to make this project not important. But I just want to outline there's a high probability of losing a location, a floor, a component network of HVAC systems. So the chances or the potential of it downing the entire courthouse, although increasing as we don't address the issue and is high, it is why we have it in the place that it is. With that, I'd like to take any questions or comments.
Great. Supervisor Humphrey?
Well, what am I comment on? Taxes, gloom and doom, projects 3 years from now, or the courthouse electrical? And if it's the courthouse electrical, I have no comments. We know that, you know, I mean, right now we're just trying to discuss where $2.1 million are gonna be spent. And so, yes, do I think the electrical is important? I very much do. And, that's my comment.
Okay. Supervisor.
You know, Marion brought up a point on bonds and stuff like that, to have a single project to bond out or something of that nature, like to build the Tommy Martin Klein building, we bonded it out. Would that fit a situation like we have here at this courthouse?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, yes. That is a decision on the board. We can identify capital projects. Specifically, they would have to be named as a part of the bond, general obligation. And then we can go out and get financing for those. So, yes.
You know, and I heard what Joseph said earlier about taking the high side on the guess of what's gonna cost. But that's a real wild guess when it comes to an old building.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, I was at Navajo County Finance Director there. Same situation, building built in the mid-70s, had to replace all the switchgear for electrical, do a lot of the work that we're talking about here, because this building was built, one of our newer buildings in Globe, it's built in the 70s. $3 million. So $3 million is, and that was 10 years ago that we did that electrical. It's a guess, as Joseph has said, but I think it's going to take every bit of that.
You know, I don't like the interest rates at today's time, but that would just be an option in my mind if that was at all possible, and that'd free up $3 million that we have in cash, basically, to help with some of these other projects. Just throwing it out there. Doesn't have to do with politics or anything else like that. It's a simple question.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, we certainly are considering all our options, and that is included in one of the options, yes.
And Maren, you said earlier, you know, to pursue a bond, you know, you're looking at 6 months, whatever, a year maybe, I don't know. But like Joseph said, our building is still functioning right now. But the longer we go, the more chances it's not going to function. So I think that's a decision that needs to be kind of thought about pretty hard and decide what we're going to do. That's my part of it.
I feel that the Board of Supervisors should be the stewards of the property of Gila County, and that we should not neglect what we have, or we end up with much more costs later. And so when I have a project I need to do at my home, like let's say a new roof, I can either afford that or I can't afford it. And if it's leaking, I've got to do something to fix it now. Not, well, whenever I have a bunch of money later, 3 years from now. So I would be interested in hearing more about bonding some of these projects, or whatever, if we want to borrow $10 million and include a bunch of these projects to get them done. We have a 50-year-old buildings, I mean, it's just amazing the costs here. We're never going to be able to do that with what we have in our pocket. So we have to do something. We have to consider borrowing to get the project done before it costs twice as much later, or we have a catastrophic failure. So I agree that this building right here should be prioritized.
Can I bring something else up too, Joseph? And I want to ask you this too.
Yes, please.
Is, like on the fairgrounds, you broke it up into phases, phase 1 and phase 2. What would it look like if we just combined that? It said this needs fixed and this is the amount. I mean, does it have something to do more with the facilities, that you can only do part of it now and part of it later? You see what I'm saying?
It's a combination of both those points that you've made. So the first phase is to jump in to create a baseline and safety all of the electrical. The second portion is more of an expansion that deals with emergency management and also quality of life and economic development. So there's some wins on that second phase, but the first phase, it's split out. Now, say if we looked at combining them, and that's how it originally started out. But we split them. A few of the reasons outlined just a minute ago, but also because the cost and the time that was associated with the larger project as a whole was going to take a substantial amount of time. At that moment, we didn't know how much time. If that was going to take a year for the design, engineering, and we extracted the highest risk, essentially creating the two phases. So, long answer to it, we would recommend to keep it as it is, also due to the planning and the design of it, not just the time.
But the planning
Cost.
and design, you could go ahead and do for the whole project at the same time, and then just split it, what you're gonna do on the ground at the first phase and then the second phase. So what I'm asking is, okay, you go through, planning and design, then are you, for the first phase, are you gonna have to do that, turn around and do that again for the second phase?
No, sir. No,
Okay.
sir. They're all feeding each other, creating a synergy of that planning and design. And that's what's extremely important about how we do things within the facilities department. And to draw a little bit more context to what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, even with the phase 2, some of our larger phases, we build them so that they can be budgeted appropriately. So if we need to phase those in on that phase 2, we have that opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, Klein. I think, in my, as an accountant, what the first phase is just to make sure everything that we currently have is brought to code. Second phase is to bring three-phase electrical into it, like the large exhibit hall, the commercial building that we have out there. Need to have HVAC installed there instead of swamp coolers to make it even more available for use, particularly in the summertime. Right now, we cannot bring HVAC to those buildings because we don't have the three-phase electrical. So it's first phase, get us up to code on everything that exists. Second phase, bring three-phase electrical to the fairgrounds where we can expand and really do new things to bring even more events to the facility.
So, my question would be to you and Maren is there a way, because the fairgrounds electrical and the county, or the courthouse here, are the two really big projects. Really big projects. Is there a way to package those under a project and bond them and do it that way?
Absolutely.
And then that would loosen up what we have to really stretch out through the rest of these projects and really get some things done that need done. You know, that's one thing, you know, you look at this list and like Steve said about you having a list of 100 projects on it. I mean, there's no end to projects, I'm sure, but.
Top security.
Exactly. And so I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, you know, if we bonded $5 million or whatever it came out to be in on those two deals, that would loosen up $6 million to go on with these other ones. So.
I believe we're getting the message between Maren and I that we're getting the message to look at it.
That's just me talking.
Well, when we bring it to this forum here to have that discussion and have it so that you have the ability to consider this option, that option, and to have that public comment. So we've, I believe, gotten the message that to take a look at that. If you give us 2-3 months, then we certainly can bring that to this open forum for discussion and have it as one of our viable options to consider.
I would only have one question. It's just a ballpark question for Maren. But say we did bond those two projects. Let's just say that's the way it's going to go. We're going to do it. Okay. Off just a ballpark figure, what would our liability be every year until that's paid off on that? Any idea?
So the cost benefit of issuing a bond for these two projects probably isn't there. You probably need a bigger list of projects. Your return on investment probably shows up around the $10 million mark when it becomes worth it to have invested in a long-term borrowing, because you're looking at 20 years at least, that you'd be paying this back. If you were just to do these two projects, you could probably get your annual debt service between $450,000 and $500,000, depending on the cost of borrowing. I don't, from a very conservative finance perspective, I don't see that these two projects alone would be worth doing all of that administration for the board or for our taxpayers. You would probably want to look at a larger pool of projects to do that. But we have capacity, given our pledged revenue streams of revenue, you have capacity to do that.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, 20-year at $5 million, the actual payback of the debt is $250,000 plus interest, so you're looking about $350,000 a year for a $5 million. But I agree with Maren and the economics of the whole deal.
Yeah, and so do I. I think the higher number would be more cost-effective. We still then would still have the $6 million to catch up on things.
So in checking with Mr. O'Driscoll, we do have some work sessions coming up. I could probably gather information for you to have for a work session at the end of September, where we could talk about what those actual costs of borrowing would be and where that cost benefit point would be, and it wouldn't just be us projecting numbers, but where we could get, hey, what would this really look like, and get some data if September would work for you.
Great. Maren, was there a reason or something behind when you mentioned congressionally directed spending for one of these projects, which was
Yes.
phase 2? Was there a reason that you selected that project?
That particular project was submitted as a potential congressionally directed spending item to the senators in our most recent list of requests to them. That's why I parsed that one out separately. And it was for that phase 2 electrical at the fairgrounds. So there are other projects that had gone for congressionally directed spending that are not facilities priorities, but that particular one was.
Okay.
So just so you know where those sources are. And yes, as Mr. Menlo pointed out, there are grant resources available. We are currently researching which of those apply to this list of priorities. We do not have an answer for you at this moment.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, Chairman, on that earmark for the $1.6 million for the second phase of the electrical system for the fairgrounds, we applied for 4 different earmarks through Mr. Menlove and Patty Powers. This one was not chosen to go on to the next round. So we had a discussion this morning that we're going to keep applying for this particular $1.6 million each year. Hopefully we'll be able to obtain that at some point in time. But that's to bring you the most current, up-to-date information.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you, Joe. Keep going.
All right, so we kind of stepped into the phase 2 for electrical upgrades. I'll just kind of add a little bit more context, and then if we have any additional questions or thoughts, we'd be happy to hear them. And just outlining how we got to the prioritization for it. Phase 1 of the Fairgrounds Electrical Project aims to establish a foundational infrastructure for safety and operational readiness. Just like Mr. Minlove was mentioning, however, the completion of phase 2 is crucial to fully transform the facility into an operational center for the community, outlining it for emergency services and community support. While the emergency services have appreciated the use of the fairgrounds as a base camp during local emergencies, they have encountered challenges due to the insufficient electrical support for logistics, communications, and command staff. Additionally, the lack of quality of life infrastructure, such as the HVAC systems, has hindered the site's ability to adequately support emergency staff and displaced evacuees, and again, trying to use it as a hub for Gila County. Consequently, the site's potential remains underutilized, primarily servicing as open space rather than fully supporting critical activities. The upcoming phase 2 of the project will play a pivotal role in implementing crucial quality of life, Mike mentioned. But these enhancements will serve to solidify the site's position as a flagship and catalyst for the economic development in Gila County also. At present, the site is constrained in its ability to accommodate large-scale events such as the Gila County Fair, concerts, rodeos, other similar major gatherings. There are safety concerns related to the lack of cooling and heating, limited lighting, and insufficient electrical support, and that's what this phase 2 is essentially closing up the safety side of it, while at the same time providing those two highlights of support for the community. With that, I'd like to take any questions or comments.
Feel free. And this was proposed under the earmark process, phase 2.
Yes, sir.
And so it fell out after this first round.
Correct.
So then it won't be able to be put back in until when? March? That's a hard thing about earmarks on projects. It may take 2 or 3 years to get them to where we need them.
Thank you.
All right. The next one is the Globe Road Shop Wash Bay. The existing drainage system is not working properly and needs frequent pumping. Fixing or replacing the system will decrease the amount of labor required and get us into compliance from an ADQ standpoint without the requirement of contract cleaning. Contract cleaning is roughly $15,000 a year. With that, an assessment is necessary to determine the most appropriate approach for achieving a well-functioning system. So this is very early on, essentially just identified. With that, I'd like to take any questions or hear some thoughts.
I have a question. So we're going to, okay, and I don't mean to be sarcastic. You want to spend $650,000 to save $15,000 a year. Is that, am I getting that right?
That is a portion of it, but the important part is the ADEQ compliance.
Okay. All right. And this facility would be in one location, Globe, right?
That's correct,
Okay.
Chairman. So yes, at this particular time, the ADEQ compliance and permitting from the ADEQ is what's driving this for the entire fleet program that we have in Gila County.
How do we accommodate that compliance in, say, the north? Like at Star Valley?
We don't have a car wash system up there in Star Valley, so we deal with that all in the Globe area. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we do have a car wash. Oh, right. My apologies.
Okay. That's all I had.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
a distinct thing with this is this used by Public Works as well, so it wouldn't be a general fund hit. It would be about half general fund, half Public Works or HERF. So about 3 1/4 general fund, 3 1/4 for Public Works excise tax.
Okay.
It's really the ADEQ part of it that's the worst, you know, for, that we need to meet. And so, I mean, I'm amazed we went this far with it, or kind of amazed they didn't do that when they built the facility over there, but, catch up. So I think this is particularly one that we don't have any, way around. That's a violation coming if we continue to ignore that one. That's a given.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. The next project is the Central Heights, might be out of order, the Central Heights paving.
You have courthouse paving as number 6.
I apologize, there's typo here. So with the courthouse paving, excuse me, keep going. So at the courthouse paving, just like all of our paving projects, we assess them based off of the condition of it and some of the maintenance that's been done, and also the risk that it has to potential clients or constituents, and also exposure to the employees. With that, the courthouse fell really high on top of that matrix. As you can imagine, there's a great deal of traffic. Almost all constituents within Halo County at some point track through this, and also the wide spans of the damage to or the deterioration of the pavement. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Supervisor Humphrey.
Not at this time.
Okay, Supervisor Klein.
Just a little bit of comparison, Joseph. I see that you think the paving is a little bit more important than the courthouse elevator. Is that still your feelings on that?
Yes, sir. And the primary distinction between the two is the risk management side of it. So, and the exposure over the past couple of years that's been exposed to Hilo County. A perfect example is someone taking a fall in the parking lot versus the elevator not having a direct impact related to something like that.
Joseph, we can do our own chip sealing. Is there a reason why we're repaving rather than chip sealing? Is it that far gone?
Yes, sir.
It is, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
this is one of those items that Arizona County's insurance pool, looking at the risk and the liability, has been hammering me for years, saying that has got to be done. The parking lot out here and a couple other ones that we have here in town. So it is, it's a priority for us, for our risk and our liability potential.
And so you don't think we can just chip seal over the top of it? You think we have to mill it up and lay new asphalt?
Every recommendation that we've had from, whether it's conversations with Public Works and others, that'd be the recommendation.
We got people that do an awesome chip seal job.
We can certainly take a deeper look and see what some alternatives can be to it.
Well, this might be a project that we would say, look, we're not going to get it 100% great this year. Let's chip seal it for a third of the cost or whatever the cost would be. And this would be a project that would end up being a future project of some sort. Now, if the chip seal won't work because of the deterioration, then that would be a waste of money.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know.
I don't see why it wouldn't work. I don't know about the smoothness comparability to new asphalt would be, but we just chip sealed over dirt and it worked, so.
Okay.
All right. Next project is the courthouse elevator. The elevator is a critical access point to services. Although completing this project in the next 2 years is critical, the elevator continues to operate with repairs. While there are alternative access points, these temporary options would not be ideal, but would provide alternatives that enable this critical project to be deferred. The premises comply with all safety regulations, risk management protocols, and building codes. So again, I don't want to downplay any of these projects. We've already identified, and the board agrees that these are important projects. But in order to draw a distinction between these projects of what would be categorized as the top priority versus the lower priority related to these, we do have to draw that distinction. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Only one I would have, Joseph, when you talk about the issues with the elevator, are those kind of simple issues, or are we running a risk of trapping somebody halfway to the next floor level and sitting there?
So, Chairman, Supervisor Klein, it's a great question. So we always, this is sometimes frustrating, and I can understand even for our side, we deal in probability and we try and look at it from a percentage. So the probability of that happening is very unlikely based off of the maintenance and the condition of the system. However, that potential is always there. Once we get to a risk that is a high potential, we start looking at recommending those projects a little bit higher and would create a different ranking.
So right now, we're really not seeing that high of a risk if that happens.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, next is the Sheriff's Office jail paving, very similar to what we talked about before. Again, we go off of the condition of the asphalt maintenance that's been done in the past, and also its exposure to the constituency and employees. This is a project that falls lower on the list, especially when it comes to some of the other paving because of the limitation or exposure to the public. So there is a risk for employees from a trip or fall hazard. Again, that's why it also falls on the list. Like Mr. Minlove mentioned, from a risk management standpoint, the risk is still there. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay,
I'm good.
yeah, okay.
All right, so the courthouse roof replacements, we have the option to proceed with repairs, which could pose a risk to the infrastructure if we let it continue. Again, this is a project that is important. However, we are always looking at opportunities to not necessarily create longevity or in the equipment or the component because we've already exceeded that. But in order to buy us enough time so that we can plan accordingly and when it comes to the planning, budget for it also. So we have the option to proceed with repairs. However, we have some time to create a budget and a plan for its replacement. An assessment of the roof shows while this project demands attention, it also allows the administration to carry out minor repairs and budget for replacement over the next 2 to 4 years. The premises comply with all safety regulations, risk management protocols, and also building code requirements. So there's no violations or true concern related to those items. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, any questions, comments?
The only one I would say, you know, the roof replacement, I remember what Supervisor Humphrey said about flat roofs, and is absolutely right. If there's any way of putting a peak over the top of this, it'd be way good. And I don't know if you thought about that in this proposal or in the cost proposal on it or not. You know, that made up the cost, but you know, just looking at that, it would be packaged up with the rest of the courthouse in general. So,
Roger that.
Joseph, is this the original roofing from the building 50 years ago that's on it now?
I don't think so. I want to say that this roof has been replaced, but when I say replaced, it's just the membrane. So the membrane has been updated, but that was 20 plus years ago.
Okay, so we see metal, but then on the flatter spots, that's a membrane?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, again, this is another paving project. Just to highlight what Mr. Minlove was saying, there's several of these locations that were identified from ASIP, and this falls into that. The condition of the asphalt allows it to fall a little bit further down the list. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, any questions or comments?
All right, the Globe HVAC, this one is falling on the back end of the prioritized list. Primarily, while this project is lower on the priority list due to the rebound of HVAC equipment supply chain and our efficient lead times, or more efficient lead times for equipment, enabling us to conduct repairs within about a 30-day window. That was originally about 6 months to a year ago that was running us every bit of 6 months to a year on average for the replacement of the HVAC system. We've also invested in emergent mobile HVAC systems and alternative action during system failure, and we've made significant strides in preventative maintenance. With that, we've identified systems that met certain criteria and gave us the ability to use those key performance indicators of the probability of failure and preemptively replacing those. Also, over the past 2 years, we've had so many failures that we've had to replace those systems. So again, this is a very important part of our infrastructure. I do not want to downplay the importance of it, but because of those factors, we're able to kind of defer this a little bit lower on the list, and also outlining potential if we ever had to remove something from the list of where our way of thinking was. With that, I'd like to take any questions or comments.
How many units was this about?
So the selected locations are tentative, but with that being said, we're looking about 4 to 5 units.
Okay.
Did we already fix the HVAC system on the jail down here? Is that already done, upgraded, done?
So that was a larger project that was completed prior to me getting on board. From my understanding, the roof and the HVAC systems were all upgraded.
Okay, that's what I thought. So this would just be on the rest of the buildings, this building being one of them, the complex over there where your office is, over there at the health department, I would assume is one of them.
Yes, sir. There would be possibly 1 or 2, if I recall the prioritization list on our side, but most of them would be falling into the courthouse side of it.
Okay.
As mentioned earlier, so I'll be very brief with this one, since we discussed it, is the central heights roof replacement. With this being a leased facility, it falls lower on the prioritization list, but also because just like the HVAC systems, we have the opportunity for some midterm solutions. Now, when we say those midterm solutions, that's only because we have to. It's not necessarily a recommendation. So if this does get deferred, we have some options to repair. With that being said, if we look at some of our top 4 priorities, there is very limited options, and they're stepping into safety and some of the other compliance challenges. So with this one, I'd be happy to take any questions or thoughts.
Okay, questions?
The only question that I'd have, Joseph, we would have the option of just basically patching that roof rather than replacing that roof, do you think? Or is it just at the point where if you're gonna do anything at all, you just have to replace it?
It is to the point of your second comment. However, we still could go through, we wouldn't have a choice. We'd have to go, if we didn't move forward with this project, we would have to conduct those repairs on the front end.
Okay, and just so that everybody knows, especially the ones that are watching, that we don't own that building. That's why I'm continually questioning that particular project.
That is correct, yes, sir.
How old is that building, Joseph?
I am not 100% on the age of the facility.
It looks architecturally probably from the 70s or so.
Yes,
So
sir.
It's about 50 years old or whatever. So should in your estimations, it would be a viable project to spend $2.4 million on that building, even if we have really, we don't own the building, but essentially the school's not going to take it back. Is it worth putting that much money into that building?
When we look at it from a strategic standpoint, if we own the facility, then my recommendation would be to move forward with the project as a whole. However, when we consider that it is not our facility, it's important for us to adhere to our obligation of the lease. However, we have still the same responsibility to the constituents of how do we want to invest in that, and ultimately that's up to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so as we wrap this presentation up. We have the last slide containing the 12 projects in a recommended order. With that, we are more than happy to change that configuration, reprioritize based off of some of the comments and thoughts. Again, this is just a recommendation, so please let us know where you'd like us to sit.
You wanna talk about the racetrack?
No, sir, I'm not too sure how that got on the printout.
It could be some interesting discussion.
Not until you talk to insurance.
I know it, yeah. I'm not sure we'd be able to use it if we fixed it, huh?
Roger that, sir. Definitely on a different slide.
Mr. Chair, if I may. You know, we have these work sessions to direct staff, and so today we had a list of projects of 12 and 6.1 million. And then the bond issue come up on a couple projects. Well, maybe we're not spending enough money to bond out. And so, okay, so looking at this list and other lists, and perhaps even departments out of facilities that are on bad needs of things if we're gonna borrow money, where would that leave us? And so if it kind of appeared to me that the board kind of wanted to look into a bonding issue because we have more projects and we have $6.1 million to spend on, which we still need to spend that money somehow. But if we're gonna reach for bonds, okay, this is pretty much a facilities list. I don't know, do other facilities have some major projects that they are working on funding for, things of that nature? So I don't know that staff got any direction today on these 12 projects unless we look into bonding first, which would create another work session on, okay, how much money do we have? Or how much money can we afford to borrow? And if we can afford to borrow some, what is that number figure? And if we do that looking at projects, then, okay, what projects do we want on that list? Which leaves us what projects left over? And hopefully there'll be at least $6.1 million because we have to spend that money. And so anyway, that's kind of the impression I got. And if that's where staff's at, I'm not sure where staff's at, but that's kind of where I got out of the work session today, which brings up other work sessions. But and anyway, as far as raising taxes, I'm not fond of raising taxes. I'm more interested in reaching to create money than to raise taxes from our property owners. You know, infrastructure. That's why I'm pushing Tri-City so hard, is because inner infrastructure would create a lot of sales tax that we're not getting now. Discover Gila County's been a great thing for sales tax. You know, there's just a lot of creativity where we can go future, and there's always, you know, grant fundings and things that we can reach for. But anyway, I guess I didn't get much out of where we're going to spend the 6.1 on these 12 projects, and so I don't apologize to staff. I feel sorry for staff sometimes when we get in different directions, but that's my 2 cents worth on what we covered today, and I guess that's the direction I got is you know, what can we afford to borrow to maybe make better decisions or different decisions on what projects we're gonna spend the 6.1 million and what we're gonna borrow to put up. But that's just kind of what I got out of the meeting today. And so, Mr. Chair, that's all I have to offer.
Thank you.
You know, it's just the gist of our conversations that we've had is we have far more projects than we have money. And we have far more priorities than we have money. So in a way, I look at it is if there's a way of reaching out there to bond some of this and stretch that 6 million to take care of this 12-point list at least that you folks have put together, and get that much further ahead on projects, I see that as an opportunity, a way we can do that. If we jump in there, I mean, we wanna spend 6 million, we could spend it probably right here in this building today. We don't know on some of these projects. All these costs are your best guess estimate, and I'm really glad you're taking the high side on it, but still, that's a hard one to come out with. But, so I look at this and the fact that after this money is gone, there is no more money sitting out there. And so how can we make it stretch as far as we can without bonding out the whole package or something to that, you know, and get these projects done? That's the only place I'm coming from. I'm perfectly fine at spending $6 million today, because my vote would be in this building.
Well, Joseph, thanks. I think your priority list is pretty close. So I'm just going to ask James, Michael, and you if you have questions for us, if there is some fogginess on what we're asking or directing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
Just a question, would that be polling the board?
it would be. So, yeah,
Then I'm gonna leave the room.
yeah. From your conversation, the discussion, I'm going to try to say what I've gathered and what our action as staff is going to be. First of all, that the ARPA money for Project Overwatch, that I believe that that's appropriate, that we're going to go ahead and have facilities bring that back for a vote for the board to spend those ARPA dollars and get that completely obligated. It has to be obligated by this December, and so we need to take care of that. We'll be to the end of that, and that's taken care of by Project Overwatch, which I think I've heard that we go ahead and take care of that and move forward. The rest of them, I had to juggle those numbers around and see where, what we could do with what our 6.1 that we have available resources. And again, I've stated it before that I don't look favorably on bonding unless it's a project that's going to last for the length of the bond. If we bond for some 20 years, then whatever the project is, it darn well better last for 20 years. So I don't want to pay for something that we have to pay for a second time before we have it paid for the first time. But if you take all of that out except for the electrical in this building and perhaps the electrical at the fairgrounds, we are pretty close to that $6.1 million. So we could potentially do projects 4 through 12 with our 6 million, maybe an extra $500,000, $1 million of general fund that we could contribute to that. We do budget every single year money to put into our capital. So the federal dollars that we've gotten are going to be done, and we'll have spent those soon. But we will continue as a part of the general fund budget annually to budget dollars for capital expenditures. We just have to keep on top of it, as Supervisor Christensen, you pointed out, had not been done in the past. And we want to correct that. So with the available resources we have, with the exception of the 2 electrical projects, we're pretty close to having available resources in the $6.1 million. As far as this list, in actuality, we're pretty close. To add a little bit of complication to that is we didn't talk about Monroe Street. That's being handled by Public Works under the Homero shop, and that's a project to smooth out Monroe Street, lower that down, and redo that. That's a project that in our discussions we would propose to the board to split, and that's another $1 million project or more. So that's on top of that, but that's still all doable with the financing that we have. And we're looking to do the parking lot here and Monroe Street to the west end of our property in one project. I don't know if that makes any sense, or contributes to that. But that's what, Maren had brought forward that in September, we'll bring unless there's something you want to pull out of it, we need to bring it back to the board before September, have a discussion that we come up with. We've got projects here, we haven't presented the financing rate for it. In September, we'll bring it back with the financing proposal, how we do this, and bring back perhaps even a bigger picture of some things you brought up, Supervisor Christensen, about the maintenance of operation long-term and long-term facilities. Where do we go with some of these facilities like Central Heights? What is a long-term plan for that, being a 50-plus-year-old building? Do we invest significant dollars in that or not? So that's what I would take, is that in September we bring it back with the financing, potential financing solutions.
I think I can agree with that. I think we're not settled on everything just yet. We don't have we need some more information on how to pay for some things, in my mind.
From my standpoint, I would say that the security cameras with the ARPA money and finish that off.
Yeah.
I would believe we would be good to go, but that would wrap up the ARPA stuff and have that spent, done. The rest of it, it'd be nice to sit back and Maren would come up with some options to look at for how we could finance all the rest of them and what direction we need to go and go from there.
And there is a bigger list.
Oh, I know, you haven't even talked about Russell Road.
Right.
I was wondering when that was gonna come up, so.
Yeah, and I think we need to kind of know maybe more than just 12. I think it'd be okay for us to see a fuller list. I know we don't have the money to do it all, but just a matter of knowledge, saying we have 100 things. It's not just 12, so a lot of decisions to make. So
Yes, sir.
unless there's something else, I really appreciate your presentation. You guys do so much work to try and get this to us with estimates and everything. That's a lot of work.
Roger that. Yes,
And
sir.
so I think we're narrowing it, I feel.
I agree.
And so September, we'll do another work session. So I've got some time, by the way, we need to work that date out because I'm going to be gone part of that. Okay? I don't want to be gone during that. Okay?
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay,
Board of
thank you.
Supervisors.
All right, our next item is 2E, information discussion regarding an update on legislative activity in Washington, D.C. from Gila County federal lobbyist Patricia Power at BOS Public Affairs Group. And hi, Patty.
Hi.
Yep.
Hello.
How are you, Patty?
I'm good, thanks.
How was the road coming out of Young yesterday? Is it better than coming up?
Yes,
Good.
a lot better, actually. And it was raining.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, the county road is a lot more impressive than the state road, in my
Good.
untrained opinion.
We're always glad to hear that.
Yeah. Anyway, so did we lose Tim or? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, good afternoon. So you guys have been in a long meeting. I'll keep this quick. This is just a good opportunity for me to be able to talk to the three of you at once.
Sure.
And always my, I was going to say door, but my phone and email box are open to you guys directly if you ever need anything. But I just wanted to cover a few quick things and let you get on with your day today. The reason I came now was for the Tunnel Creek Bridge ribbon cutting. And that was a great event, and it's a great story. And there were a lot of really good speeches made. I don't need to reiterate any of the, like, what got done and why and how and all of that. But I think one of the things that's useful to take from all of that at this point is lessons learned. You know, what did the county learn in doing that? And I think we had a meeting before this meeting just with staff about, you know, moving forward on some of the big projects. So I'll bring up Russell Road for you, Lee. So just on the road front, you've got Russell Road, 512 Road, Control Road, Houston Mesa Road, probably leaving something out, but those are probably the, and since I've been involved with the county now, since '06, I mean, not Russell Road, but those other projects have been on the list and on a very high priority. So, you know, we just look at how the bridge got done and what worked, and just wanted to share a couple of things with you. And I think it's something that, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the county's team, but I can tell you what I will be bringing to the table in the hopes of being able to do it moving forward, is identifying a good team of folks to work on it. You know, and that was one of the really useful things, I think, with Tunnel Creek Bridge. You know, you had Kimberly Horn and Dave Lesko at the table right from the beginning, and, you know, involved right to the end. So was able to take the lessons learned as we went through and applied again and again for that big federal grant, you know, to bring that advice in and sort of make it better and eventually get us over the line. Providing enough resources, I think that Gila County does a really good job in taking the long view on things and making sure the work that's needed to get to where we need to go is funded. So just applaud there and hope that we can keep doing that going forward. Identifying the right federal program to fund it, you know, is a really important thing as well, and something that we work to do. Developing strong political support at every level, you know, for you guys here. I mean, you need your county's support behind you, and then all the way up the line. And that just takes a lot of effort and time, but is perfectly doable. So even if it's a federal grant, and there may not even be any state money involved, making sure your state folks are on board with it. You know, like at the end of the day on the bridge, having the governor weigh in turned out to be helpful. And it's not necessarily something you'd think of in going for federal money. And then probably bottom line in all of it is persistence. And listening to you all talk this morning about, well, we know it's going to take a while. It is a very wise observation, and one that a lot of people when they're dealing with federal government don't have. So, you know, it's a challenge. All of these grants federal grants have cost-benefit requirements, and it's just tough when you're really rural. So, so anyway, I just wanted to leave you with those sort of general thoughts about moving forward, because it's great the bridge is done, but there's a lot more work to do, so we'll keep looking. A quick earmark update. Michael touched on a number of things. This year, the county submitted a total of 4. We just heard back within the last couple of weeks from the Senate offices that they have forwarded 2 of the 4 to the Senate Appropriations Committee, which is really good news. The first one was for the 3 additional ADA compliant cabins for the Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat. We did get the earmark for the one of them, and unfortunately the Agriculture Department is putting Marin through the paces of trying to actually get that money, but I'm totally confident that she will. So basically what that breaks down to is each of the cabins was estimated by the county to cost $500,000. So the earmark cost shares are based on the program that's being earmarked. So for that program, it's a rural development out of the Ag Department. For each one, the county would get $333,000 from the Ag Department, and then have to put up $167,000. So we'll see. I mean, it's that request. One of the reasons it might have gone forward is the committee liked it. They funded one of them before, and it's a separable project. So if they're doing numbers at the end and they're like, well, we've got a little more money. So, you know, this one gives them the option. They can give you enough for 1, 2, or 3, but hopefully they'll give us all 3, and we'll be done with that then. And the second one was for 512 road construction. So there was an earmark a couple of years ago to finish the design for the entire roadway. And Homero reports that they are now at 60% design, which is really far along. And the rest of it should be done pretty quickly. So what the senators forwarded to the committee was $2,991,000. And that would be for construction. So we'd have to see, is that a mile? Is it 2 miles? I'm sure the county will make that last in an effective way. So unlike the bridge where you can't build a part of a bridge, we needed all the money before it could go. These road projects, it's not optimal. I mean, there's a lot of money lost in mobilization, demobilization, and all of that, but at least if you can keep getting chunks of it done until it's done. So that's kind of the plan for there. Where that's at now, the committee, the Senate Appropriations Committee hasn't started marking up any bills at the subcommittee or committee level. That will have to happen next. And then sort of end of the day, both houses of Congress are going to have to get their appropriations bills to a point where they can compromise and get them passed. Optimistically, we'd see something by the end of the year. Realistically, I'm going to say it's probably going to be a little later than that. This is a kind of contentious election year, so right about now, things are really slowing down. I mean, they're still doing a lot of work, but there's a waiting going on between, do I really want to get it done before the election, or may I be in better shape on my position post-election? So we're starting to see that. So it should be a very busy lame duck session in any case. Any questions about earmarks?
Supervisor Clayton? I don't think I really do. It's just, I mean, we put them out there and we hope they're funded, and if they're not, we run at them again next year. That's just, I mean, that's just the way it is. And there's nothing we can do to help any of that, and like those road projects especially, to have them in that mix is a good thing, and that'll give us a huge benefit if we can collect some of that money, and not only like the 512 and whatnot, but we also have the Control Road and the Russell Road, and so all we can do is keep plugging away.
Yeah, Patty, so a very small amount of public land, and so round numbers, 2/3 of what we spend is grant money and things like that, so it's vital. Yeah.
So I meant to start with this, but the presentation on the facilities projects was so helpful for me, because I mean that's what we start with when we start to put a list together of what to request. And one of the things we touched on a little bit this morning is we should probably start a little earlier. I don't know that it would guarantee that we wouldn't still be scrambling at, an hour before the deadline at midnight to get it all together and in, but it's a similar kind of approach. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be done. What makes the most sense to submit? And sometimes the answer may be maybe not your number one priority, but the one that's most likely to get over the line. So, I spent a lot of time talking to the Senate offices in advance, like, what do you guys want to see this year? So, we try to be as, have your request positioned as effectively as possible, at least going into the Senate offices. That's where our control kind of ends. And it is tough because it's kind of based on what else everybody else submits. So like one year they needed agriculture projects. Well, we gave them a lot of agriculture projects the next year. The next year they were flooded with agriculture projects. So anyway, we'll keep at it. So, the final thing I wanted to just touch on, and really quickly, Woody, you and I talked about this yesterday, but for the rest of the board, Woody and Kathy have been working on this land transfer bill for the Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat, and it's made great progress. So it is done in the House, passed the House of Representatives on the suspension calendar in May. It's made a lot of progress through the Senate. It has been reported out of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. So it's been reported to the floor of the Senate, so it's ready to go. Senator Kelly's office tried to get it passed on its own. Sometimes, in a very, a bipartisan, completely non-controversial bill, which is what this is, you can get it passed on suspension. It works differently in the House and the Senate. But they gave it a try, and the process is called hotlining. So they literally, and I think they do it the way they've always done it, like they send around a paper sign-off among all 100 offices saying, are you okay with this going on the suspension calendar? And it only takes one senator to say no, and someone said no, and it was not going to be negotiable. So the most likely outcome for the bill in the Senate right now is probably what was always the likely outcome for a bill like this, is it will be rolled into a package coming out of the Committee of Jurisdiction. And they are working on a recreation package right now. Lots of times those packages get done right at the end of the session. So that's the hope at this point, is that recreation package is completed and moves probably post-election. If the bill in the House and the Senate is identical, so if each body passes the same bill, then it goes directly to the president and can be signed. And there's no reason why it wouldn't be signed. If it doesn't happen, during the lame duck session, the Senate doesn't pass the bill, everything goes away, and then you start back over again for the next session of Congress, which would be in January of 2020. As I explained to Woody, it's not like you're starting really, really from square one. You've got a bill that progressed really far, so it'll have to be reintroduced. And then it will get, it would move through the docket pretty quickly, most likely. So it's tough sometimes. It's hard to move big things, but it'd be almost as hard to move something small and non-controversial, even though you would think it shouldn't. No one objects, but that's where we are.
Patty, that was my question, and it had been, and I think I told you this, is how come they don't just run it on its own merit? And obviously they did. And so my hat's off to Senator Kelly for that. He's been a huge supporter of this bill anyway. He really has. His office has worked really hard on it. And so, he's trying. And we just have to roll with it, and it works out by, you said December 31st?
Well, when they adjourn sine die, so it sort of depends. Sometimes they adjourn early. If they're all done, they like to get out of town before Christmas. But there have been years. I've been working on stuff on New Year's Eve.
Well, we can only hope that it goes on through, and we've pushed on it from every angle possible, and right now all we can do is just sit back and wait and see. It'll be a huge plus for the county. It's a really good county project, and it'll happen. If it doesn't happen this year, it'll happen next year, so.
Yeah, you've got really strong bipartisan support.
I think so,
Maybe not in each chamber, but
yeah,
at least
right,
across the Hill.
right.
And I think, generally, projects for veterans are strong support. But that's all I had on my list. If there's anything you guys have for me, I would really like to listen in on the next workshop you have on these projects. I can just zoom in or whatever your process is to do that, because I think it's just going to be really helpful for the earmark process.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
One thing, Patty, that we've had an issue with from the time we've been in office, and especially on these fires every year, is the government, when the fire's over, they brush off their hands and walk away the next one. They don't leave any money behind. And that to me is an issue. From a county standpoint, I know it's been an issue because we've had to pick up the pieces and, you know, have this agency, that agency, you know, collect some money from the state, however it is, to just try and scrape by to put people back together. And I'd like to see somehow there be a push on some of these incidents when that bear team is there. There's some kind of identification on what's gonna go forward and what it's gonna take to kind of patch things up and that money be left behind to do that, with or without the government's involvement, but the money is there, whether it's in a grant form or whatever, would be awesome. You know, we sat here during the Mescal fire and the Telegraph fire and burned up a lot of people and homes and whatnot, and when the government walked away from it, we didn't have anywhere to go. Only thing, thank goodness, is the state is what stepped up and helped us in that. Where I felt the government should have been sitting there with some kind of a process to help us start putting people back together. And that's gotta happen up there on the hill. You know, that's gotta be our representatives, that's gotta be somebody up there willing to take that and push it to, try and get that back in place. At one time, it was there.
Yeah, yeah.
But-
When bear teams didn't just leave and leave nothing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a great thing to talk to our delegation about, because they hear about it when it happens. Again, I know the last couple of fires, Kelly's been out here, you know, while they're still burning even.
Right.
So they appreciate that. This might be a good NACO issue, you know, where you'd have a much broader base of people who are having the same experience, no doubt.
They are.
Asking the same questions.
Right.
So, yeah, put that on the list.
So
It's-
I had one more thing for you.
Okay.
So here, just not too many months ago, we had a young lady here from Gila Pinal, aging, and gave us a presentation on our senior centers and money and everything like that. Well, I didn't realize it until that presentation that a lot of all the federal money that comes to our area for senior centers and whatnot is through the Older Americans Act. And according to her, that act has been sitting there kind of stagnant for many years. And I took that to mean like the money has always been the same, year in, year out, yada, yada, yada. Where in reality, out on the ground, we're faced with inflation, we're faced with wages difference and all of this for our seniors. And it's not reflected through the Older Americans Act. Well, they just renewed that act in March. But I haven't had a chance to see if they adjusted the actual numbers, the dollars on it, or if they just worked with the process. I'm kind of thinking at this time they just updated some processes in that act. But that is something that's real important here, Patty. We had voted to give our senior centers $165,000 from the county this year. And whatnot. And so we've taken a real hard commitment from the county to help support these folks. And in reality is it is a federal deal, but there's no way we can shrink that either and not help them. So I would like to try and track this down, and if need be, that'll be a point of some of my meetings in DC with our people. I've already started it through Congressman Crane to ask them to check into it, but we need to push on that. It has more effect, I believe, in our rural counties than it does anything, because these counties with these senior centers that are way out in the middle of nothing, like Hayden and Winkleman, they support people all the way down that copper corridor, make a big circle. In those rural communities, that's the only people our seniors see on a regular basis is when they roll up there to help them on meals or whatever it is. So there's a real big need there to try and work somehow to get some more money on the ground through that act.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I can look and see what they did in the recent reauthorization and maybe get with James about what all you are doing, and have some county contact on the staff level. Yeah, for sure. I mean, at least shouldn't be any problem to get back to you about what they've done. But, yeah.
That would be awesome, thank you.
Supervisor Humphrey.
Oh, no, just, I want to thank you very much for all that you helped us with as far as funding in the past. And I've got, one major project that's really needing funding in my district, and that's the Tri-City, trying to reduce sewer between Gold Mine. And so anyway, that's something that we need to look into, and obviously, after the meeting today, infrastructure is important to rural communities, because we just have things that we can't afford to have major things happen. And I know it can always come back that we can raise taxes, but it won't do any good to keep raising taxes if you're not creating infrastructure too. Because, you know, you can only tap that well so many times before it's not doing you any good. So that's why I'm a big infrastructure guy, because I would rather work to creating infrastructure than I would to raising taxes. And so, but no, I just want to thank you very much, and I appreciate you having a meeting at 1 o'clock today, very much. And so, that's all I have. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Yeah.
So, and just, takes Congress a long time to get the big infrastructure bill, which is, it's basically the highway bill, with some other things in there. The last one passed in 2021, IHAA, which was huge and had a lot of good stuff in there for rural America. That bill expires in 2026, so they haven't started hearings or anything yet, but there is chatter about getting ready for the reauthorization. So, you know, Infrastructure Week will be back.
Good.
That's coming too.
Thank you, Patty. I really appreciate you
you.
coming our way and talking to all of us, and all of your concerns and all of the work that you do.
Well, thank you.
Really appreciate that. Thank you for the
No,
presentation.
I always love coming here.
Yeah.
So, and love to see you guys in DC too. So, still trying to get some feedback on the PILT fly-in. And then, you know, as things come up, it really makes a big difference when you guys come back. And, I mean, you've all been there. You know, Tim, we went over to DOT about the bridge that time. I mean, it makes a difference. People are impressed when you make the trip. And you make the trip to tell them this is so important to you. You have taken, and I know, I mean, for you guys to come, it's a day there, a day back, plus however many days you're walking around. So.
And we obtained good information there as well, like when we did the debriefing with the Arizona Department of Transportation on the bill grant for the bridge. And they said, you do a good grant, but you don't have the human element. And so I really think that the people's comments on film that went in with the grant helped make a big difference, because they were actually able to see, and I don't think that the human element had ever been entered into any of the grants prior. So yeah, it is well worth the trip, and we do get good information to help us go forward.
Yeah. And your DPW department does a really good job on doing all of those follow-ups and making sure we get that feedback, because it really makes a difference.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Yeah, just get back with us on the date for that PILT. And
Yes, I've asked. I've not heard back yet. Yeah. So
Okay.
we're not only looking for the date on that, but also looking for the $2024. So
okay.
yeah, they should be coming.
Okay, thank
Great.
you.
Well,
Thank you, Patty, appreciate it.
Thank you. So item number 5 is call to the public. Anyone here in Globe? No. Lisa, how are we?
No call to the public up here.
Okay, thank you. And Cassandra, no. How many do we have today? Excellent. That's we're doing better every day or every time. Thank you very much. I'll close that now. Item number 4. We'll start with James on presentations.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just wanted to briefly acknowledge the ribbon cutting at the Tunnel Creek Bridge on Saturday. Sergeant Humphrey, appreciate your leadership on getting that done. That has been made comments that you reached out, you made those trips to Washington DC, talked to the US DOT, Department of Transportation, and debriefed and got out information to help improvement. It made a huge difference of your leadership and what you brought to that. And I'm just appreciative because it's a huge project. As mentioned Saturday, that it was on time. It was completed on time. And that also we had to put up, as a county, had to put up some contingency dollars. We are going to get most of that contingency back. So a project of that magnitude, of that size, that we are getting money back from as a county to invest in other projects for the county, and on time is, from my experience, almost unheard of. So Supervisor Humphrey, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for working with all of the county staff in getting that done. Ms. Power and I made quite a trip around the county yesterday to look at the projects, get that visual of what things are going on so that it relates when we're talking to Washington, D.C. to have that. So we spent a whole day yesterday and have additional visits. One of them to go up to Oak Flats and take a look at the operation on the surface in Oak Flats and see that copper mining operation late this afternoon, so that we can be, Copper's, Gila County supports copper. And we want to be able to make sure we've got that message as a county, and so looking forward to that visit this afternoon. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, James. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, no, it was a great ceremony. I want my hats off to facilities. You guys did a great job of organizing that, and it was very well done, and I appreciate your efforts in helping us with that. Because I don't know how it could have been any better, you know, with the transportation back and forth and, you know, and things of that nature, and the food trucks. It was all very well received, and I just want my hats off to you. Thank you very much for that. And no, it was great to walk across that bridge. It's been an 8-year challenge for me and for staff, and so as a contractor, when you build something and walk away from it, it's a great feeling. But and I've done that many times, just never with something quite so large. And so it was a great feeling to have that for the safety and, like I say, infrastructure for Gila County, because now it opened that. So for future money, and it's not raising taxes, it's creating that tax revenue by creating infrastructure, which helped in Washington too. You tell them you live on 3.5% of your tax base, they don't believe you when you're 5,000 square miles. But anyway, it was a great feeling to walk across that and have that behind us, and knowing these monsoons in winter, we don't have to worry about lives or people challenging their lives to go to work or to school. And other than that, I've just got meetings coming up. We've got a new month starting, and around the first of the month, I always do my public meetings in the outer Roosevelt, Tonto Basin, Gila, and things of that nature. And so anyway, that's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, there was a good turnout on there. And Romero, I think a lot of this was on your shoulders pulling this bridge off. You did an outstanding job on it. You know, there are circumstances out there that got that bridge built, but you carried it on through and got it done, and that was one big project to do. So I think you need a lot of credit there to pull that one off. Not everybody could have done that. So anyway.
It was a big team effort.
Yeah, well, I know who leads the team, so. And I'm not making light of their work by any means. They did an awesome job, but it takes somebody in the lead of that to get there. So tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with APS and the Forest Service in Payson at 7:45 in the morning. We're going to catch a helicopter and fly the Preacher Canyon APS lines. take a look at that, and this goes back to the public safety power shutoff issue that we're all having, and we're trying to look at those lines and come up with a solution, and I think we're gonna come up with one. It's mostly Forest Service and APS, but they're gonna go in there and look at extending some maintenance beyond their right-of-ways. And I didn't realize it at the time, but those secondary lines like that, their right-of-ways only consist of about 20 feet down country. But when you're going through 80-foot tall trees, that's not very much. And so that's kind of the gist of what's gonna be looking at is how far maybe the Forest Service is gonna let them step out of that right-of-way to secure that line from anything to really happening that hopefully would alleviate them turning the power switch off. And so I'll be there tomorrow to do that. Also, on the 27th, I guess I'm gonna be in Round Valley with you. We have a meeting in Round Valley on the 27th with some folks. I've got a meeting in Christopher Creek and a meeting in Whispering Pines the next day. So also I want to say thank you to you, Homer. Your crew, Public Works crew, is awesome on that chip sealing now. They did a really good job with that chip seal in Young. I didn't get to look at the rest, but I'm pretty sure what I seen in Young is what happened in other places, that they laid that down. So they did an awesome job. They finished a little over 3 miles right there in town. 3 miles doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're in the middle of houses and homes and the dust and all that, it means a lot. It also means that they don't have to worry about maintenance on it every other week to pull those roads back together. Hopefully this will serve the purpose for a while. So it came out very well. They did it in a real timely manner. They got it done in, I think, 2.5, maybe 3 days. So they did an awesome job. Other than that, that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I don't have a lot. I will say, though, that the bridge in Tano is amazing. I remember hearing a story about Boulder Dam or Hoover Dam, whatever they call it, Lake Mead. First dam ever put on the mighty Colorado. Giant dam. So large of a project, they had to hire 2 massive contractors to work together. It was done ahead of schedule and under budget, if you can believe a project of that magnitude. And we did that, or should I say, you did that with the bridge. And so it's really easy on my part with the constituents to say, look, this, I didn't do it personally, but Gila County did something special, and we did. Ahead of schedule, under budget are not words you hear too much anymore, especially on a project that massive. So, and I don't think we killed a snake or anything. So, it was all good. Everything went really well. I don't really have anything else. So, unless there's anything else, then I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thanks.